Hello and welcome to All Things Nearest. I am Sailor and I am here with some of my whiskey family. Nick?
Hey everybody. Oh, excuse me. Hey everybody. Nick in Los Angeles. Jay?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Jay Madison in Atlanta, Georgia.
And our very, very special guest, another one of the powerhouses behind our brand. We have our global VP today, Kate Jerkens. Hi, Kate.
Hey, everyone.
Yay!
Hello. Yay! This is so
Yeah.
fun.
Woohoo.
So on All Things Nearest, we had the idea to take people on kind of an unprecedented little peek inside the brand and behind the brand. And, you know the beautiful story of Uncle Nearest, but also we want to highlight the beautiful people in our brand as well. And you are one of them. So we want to talk to you about how in the heck did this all happen? How what was your road to becoming the global VP of an incredible brand like this, one of the fastest growing in the industry and in history? So what has that journey been like for you?
Wow. Yes. So I don't know, have you interviewed Fawn yet, or is Fawn going to be one of your interviews as well?
She's next.
So we're kind of moving like in a backwards
Yes.
a little bit, but
Yes.
she'll tell her story and I'll pick up where she's going to leave off, I guess. But I've known Fawn for years. My background is hospitality. So I worked in the hotel business for about 15 years. And in November, December 2016, Fawn and Keith called me after they sent me an email with an NDA in it. And I was like, what is this? I signed the NDA, got an email. Yeah. And then they called me and they told me where they were at. They told me the story. They told me the path that Fawn had been on for the last few months. And they said, so we want you to help us roll out this whiskey company. And legitimately my response was, I drink Chardonnay. What do I know about whiskey? And they both said, you can learn. And I agreed. So I think that following Sunday, I went to their house and sat with a notebook, and Fawn just let it all go. Everything she'd been doing, where we were in the process, gave me kind of my brief introduction into whiskey and bourbon and everything. And then just said, I want you to spend the next month just learning. And so that's what I did. So bought a ton of books, bought a ton of whiskey, and started to learn, just understand the product. And what I loved about was also the history. So reading reading Jack Daniel's the biography that was so influential in creating this brand. I had this aha moment because I was a history major in college, and I was finally getting to use something that we studied that actually was going to pertain to life now. And just spent some time doing that. And then we started meeting with our branding agency and just started to continue to keep moving on this path. So the next phase was figuring out how whiskey was sold, how spirits are sold, which is not anything like in the hotel business, and figuring out distribution and the 3-tier distribution model. And it was a pretty crazy and an interesting path. Wrought with a lot of people telling us, oh, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, but no one's ever done that before. And I think the best thing for Fawn and for myself is I always say we've never not done it before. So why wouldn't we try? I'd never been up against a barrier in this business. So we're just going to keep on pushing through. So yeah, it was from the time that I got that call and I started working. It was about 8 months until we launched the product for the first time in July 2017.
8 months.
Yes. And by the way, we had originally planned to launch earlier than that. And then we delayed it because we were ideating another product. And so we didn't end it, we had been a lot more ambitious on the launch date even prior to that. I'm really glad we chose July. But in the middle of that, we hired Steve, who was going to help us, because Portland was kind of our going to be our original market. We had our marketing agency there. It's a really big cocktail market, big mixology market. And so we had our first hire in January, February of 2018, and then just kept on moving. And it was really a neat process, because being a part of a brand where you're literally at the very beginning figuring out what's the bottle shape. Like, I can tell you I think, you know, this is our bottle now, but we looked at a few different variations of this bottle that weren't that different. And like the color of this label, the amount of labels that got sent to my house for 3 months. I mean, FedEx was here every day trying to get this color right, because the color that's on the designer's palette when they show you what they want versus what it looks like when it prints, very different. So it was a very interesting process from soup to nuts to helping to build this brand.
So it's funny because I can't imagine what that's like, because I've been in this industry my whole life. And for, I think, people that are embedded in this industry, we have this idea that we're so open and friendly to each other, and as you've seen, helpful to each other. And, you know, brands don't really act like they're in competition. They act like they're community. But I feel like if you're outside of that, it's very closed off, especially because it's been a very male-driven industry, grossly lacking in diversity since the start. How was that? I mean, like you said, you know, well, I haven't been told no in this, you know, before. So did you recognize that it was going to be so difficult to penetrate an industry like this?
Yeah, you know, I think I was at the very beginning, was in this state of euphoria and excitement about the brand that I didn't even really like pay attention to that. Like I was just in so much discovery and just so excited about the brand. At the same time, from December until July, anyone I ever talked to, I couldn't tell them a damn thing. So it was like, I'm launching a whiskey or I have a project or anything, but we kept it completely under wraps. So there was this kind of state of secret that we could only do so much until we actually launched. And then I remember the build up to the launch and the night of the event, and we didn't have anyone handling social media. That was me. And I remember I was like laying in bed late at night, responding to all these crazy, like, people were so excited about the brand. And my husband looked at me, he's like, well, this is not going to work. Like, you can't be in charge. Like, he's like, you guys got to figure this out quickly, you know? And we had talked about this marathon leading up to the launch, and it was really the launch, as exhausted and as crazy as it felt, where it was like, okay, now it's time to dig in. This is where it gets real. And so we had so much energy. We had a New York Times article drop. We had so much great press. We figured out how to ship online. Like, we figured all this stuff out. And so I just took that excitement. Steve took that excitement, and Fawn took that excitement as we pitched. And yes, people, you know, Fawn tells the story candidly. There were times where we had Keith, her husband, make a call for us because so-and-so wouldn't respond, or sometimes it didn't matter that I was reaching out, but if Keith like sent an email and said, oh, this is, you know, it's all of a sudden I got this response. So I didn't really take offense to it. I just was like, this is it, this is what it is, keep moving. Now, I did have a conversation or two with some, you know, distributors that have been in the business for, you know, a lot, like obviously everyone a lot longer than me, but who said, you know, this is, you know, Kate, the basic, I felt sometimes like, that's cute that you want to do this, but, you know, and they gave me their advice as much as they could. And we kept pushing. Fawn gave me, you know, an audacious goal at the end of 2017. And, you know, after like recovering from my hyperventilation, I was like, no, we can do this. And we did it. And so, you know, I think by the time we got to July 2019, so 2 years in, we had rolled out in 50 states. And, you know, one of the things I think I didn't understand is, even when we got our first distributor contract, that didn't mean they're all just going to start selling you. That was just like this much. And then it was going in and calling every single market and saying, but they said you will roll us out when? And they'd say 3 months. And I was like, well, how about next week? And they'd be like, how about 3 months? And I'd say, okay, how about 2 weeks from now? And it was just this back and forth. And I think it was persistence. And in 2018 is when we started to also add people to our team. Nick, who's here, was one of our first ambassadors on our team in California. Jay, you came like a little bit right after that year. And so that started to make a difference as well. It was kind of like we're putting people in the market. And so that, you know, we started to make a little bit more progress. But Yeah, it felt at times like that's cute that you want to do this, but we'll see. But we did it.
Can we back up real quick? You
Yes.
within 2 years, you went from non-existence
Yes.
to all 50 states,
Yes. Crazy,
having
right?
never worked in this industry before.
Yes.
Has that ever been done before? Because I know of like alcohol companies, liquor companies that have been around for
No.
like 4 or 5 years. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're about to add our fourth state.
Yeah. No, it hasn't.
Right.
No.
It doesn't happen, right?
We also figured out, I think in January 2018 is when we connected and started selling in the UK shortly, like midway through 2018. And then by opening that up, we were able to actually start to distribute throughout the world as well. So we've started really opening up after that. No, I don't think it's been done. We say we're the fastest growing independent American whiskey company in history. I know we are. We don't stop and cheer. We don't stop to cheer and celebrate that much, but that's because we know that this is the journey's not over. The push is not over. I want to do much more internationally now. And I even think in the US, we have so much work to do still. You know what I mean? So it's amazing what we've accomplished. I think what I'm proudest of is, and I will say this, I could not have done this alone. We could not have done this alone. Fawn, myself, Steve, we've hired an incredible team, and the team that we've hired, like you see just the growth as you add like these incredible members of your team. And that's been a huge part. I'm actually so proud of the team that we created just as much.
I think that it's funny because there'll be times when I question certain things and I go, and then I have to say to myself, well, I didn't grow the fastest, I didn't start so I'm just going to leave it to them. But I think that if you had come from the industry, and I've discussed this with other industry folks, I don't know that we would have grown this fast. I think it was a blessing, and it had to be that way, that you guys did not come from the whiskey business, because I think you would have had a lot, like I know I wouldn't have attempted some of the things you did because I would have thought, well, that's just not done. You know,
like the preconceived notion of the impossibility
100%,
of it.
100%. Yeah. So I think it needed to be people like you that were like, well, it's like when you don't know any better, you just do it. And then someone's like, oh, well, I guess you just did it. And you're like, yeah, was that a problem? And
my bad. Yeah,
right. That's a great segue, Sarah. I was thinking, because from the standpoint, Kate, you spoke about it briefly, but where it came from you and Fawn coming together in regards to the relationship, like where that started, because we're all things near us, so we kind of want to dig a little deeper, because people have no freaking clue how this whole thing started. So, like, where you and Fawn had the relationship and how things started, but then also too, you touched on it a little bit too about the issue of going about how we design the bottle, how we design the label, those type of things that people are like, they don't really pay attention to, but if we tell them about it, they're like, oh wow, well, that's pretty cool. So those type of things right there. As my kids coming in, sorry.
Well, so Fawn and I were sales managers at a great hotel in Santa Monica called the Viceroy Santa Monica, and Nick lives in LA as well. It's probably Brad Korzen started his company, and the design is incredible. It's Kelly Worsler, and now they have proper hotels here in LA. It was one of the real cool places to work back in the day. And Fawn and I, she was doing events and I was doing corporate sales, and I mean, she worked around the clock on events, and the events back then were like super exciting, like cool. We did like the coolest events, like so much fun. What I was doing was a little less sexy, but I was working on the corporate side. So I was bringing in our corporate clients. So I was putting what they used to say, it's very unsexy, heads in beds. And Fawn was producing events. So you can decide what was cooler at the time. And then our company owned various hotels in the collection. So she started working at another property, I started working at another property, and we just always stayed in contact. I remember it's one of those things that like always stands out. I had a birthday and I can't remember which one, but I think it was before I was 30. And I remember Fawn making a huge effort to come out after work to buy me a glass of champagne. Like, it's one of those moments you remember. And we always stayed in contact. And then she and I actually worked on a different project. There was a moment, June 2015, she called me and said, how would you like to work at home and in your yoga pants? And I said, say what? And I was in the middle of, I was working for a high-end luxury property, managing a team of over 20, commuting quite a bit. And it was a dream come true. So it was a completely different project I worked on with her for about a year and a half. And it wasn't until, so we had started kind of working together. I was working for the Weavers on some of their projects. And then this piece came up. So yeah, I think we decided recently, I think we've known each other since 2005. And the idea behind the bottles, Jay, I will say Fawn and Keith had done a lot of work on the bottles and on the label even prior to me coming on board, but there was something about it that needed to be reminiscent to, it needed to speak to the history of Nearest. I don't know, but if you look at it, there is this kind of old school look about it that just, I don't know if you look at it, just feels, I don't know, like I have to pick it up again, but it just had this feel. There's also things that you went into this, like how many of this particular bottle can you get versus another? So there may have been one that looked exactly like this, but was like a little bit different, but we couldn't guarantee we would ever have enough of those, and we talked about this, we were on a phone the other day, like this label, this wraparound label that was always going to be, we call it like the wings, right? Well, I mean, just figuring out how to get this to stick and stay and how many millimeters it should be from the label. Should it touch? Should it not touch? I mean, so many pieces. But I remember Fawn knowing like the Tennessee Tri-Stars were such an important piece of the label, and you'll see that throughout, and like just paying homage to Tennessee without outright saying Tennessee whiskey on the label or whatever it was like a very, subtle nod. And I'd say a lot of people see that Tri-Star and think about us, because of that.
This is something that we haven't discussed yet in any of the previous meetings. Why doesn't it say Tennessee whiskey on the bottle?
It's a good question. So, well, it was purposeful. I mean, look, we were kind of coming out of the ether, right? And there's a lot of great Tennessee whiskey. We were kind of in the same neighborhood as others. So we were trying to we wanted to come out and pay homage to Tennessee whiskey without coming out, I guess the right way to say is like, without being kind of like a direct competitor, like in your face, here we are right next door to you in Tennessee. The other reason is because we knew people would ask a lot of questions. Look, Nearest Green was making whiskey in the 1800s. Fawn read an article in June 2016, and we launched in July 2017, and we are selling whiskey that's aged 8 to 14 years. So if you just do the math, we had to source, right? And we had to find a source. And so by not putting Tennessee whiskey on the label and making it so outright, we didn't have to answer a lot of those questions like who made it, prove it, all that kind of stuff. And we've gotten that question a lot. But I think I answered it kind of twofold. It was purposeful. And the sourcing thing was, people were, oh, are you sourced? And it was like, clearly, I mean, we've never hidden that. We've never hidden that.
I think it's also like, it's
not that good,
strategically, it's a pretty good call as well, because you see Tennessee whiskey on the label. And when I have conversations and I tell people, oh, it's whiskey from Tennessee, immediately there's a connotation. They immediately think, I know exactly what this tastes like. Because there's one flavor profile that everybody thinks about. And that flavor profile can be very polarizing for a lot of people, depending on how wild they got in college or high school. So a lot of people don't want to experience that flavor again. And then when you actually get them to try it without calling it Tennessee whiskey, it blows their mind. And it forces them to think about Tennessee whiskey in a different light and a different kind of level. So,
and I think some of the education we've been doing that now 2.5 years in is that Tennessee whiskey is actually it's a very premium product, and people don't understand how much extra time goes into making this product. I mean, it's extra labor, it's extra hours, it's everything. And back to your point, Nick, it's what we're doing now is trying to say, and if you look, Fawn's created some great slides, and she's done a few talks on it. We've done some talks on it, is that, this is really, it's bourbon plus, right? It's an extra step. And that step is a big defining piece for flavor and everything. I mean, you're using charcoal, you're taking out all those impurities. I mean, this is the process that can't be I don't know the word, but it's actually, I'm totally fumbling with my words right now. Hopefully we can cut that out.
It's an underrated process when it should be celebrated beyond how we're even celebrating it now. We have Richie, who's our national brand ambassador, out there doing the truth about Tennessee whiskey in the Lincoln County process, and that's incredible. The funny thing to me is when I first started talking to you guys about potentially working for the brand, and I had to find a bottle, and I was just like, oh God, if it's not good, it's gonna ruin the whole story. Oh my! And I was like freaking out, nervous, and pacing. Yeah. Oh yeah, because if you're from this industry, like you're dead in the water if it doesn't taste good. Like, cute story, but
right.
But the funny thing is because we all have to answer this very question that Nick asked you every day of our lives in this job. The product that made that polarization, the product that kind of determined that it's less quality, it's not premium. We're so connected to that product. It's such a weird juxtaposition to say, well, and that's also why you have to be so careful to say, well, do I start like Nick, you were the first one to be like, start with the whiskey, then the story, because you're going to put, which is absolutely correct, and let me just have you taste the whiskey and then I'll tell you about the whiskey, because you're going to hear the word Jack Daniel and you're going to be like, oh, I don't drink Tennessee whiskey. If you're one of those people that doesn't care for it, or it's a specific, very specific flavor, I just think it's so funny though, how that's connected with us, but it's such a beautiful thing that we are helping to come full circle and restore such a beautiful category. It deserves to be, like you said, it's bourbon plus, it's the extra step of quality, and it deserves to be seen in that light.
Absolutely.
And I think it's totally, like, for all of us, I see and I understand this, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you have the story, you have Tennessee whiskey, you have Jack Daniels, all that on one side, the popularity of it all, and that everybody knows about it. And on the other side, it's about, well, you also have the connotation or the understanding that some people may think it's a cheaper or inferior product. And so therefore, I think that's always an opportunity for us to be able to tell the story, but also to educate and speak about the charcoal mellowing process. Because I was one of those people who, like, I'm in bars and restaurants and have been working in hospitality for 15 years. And I'm thinking of myself as like, I'm not really worried about Tennessee whiskey, until I actually went to Jack Daniels and saw the process.
Yeah,
I actually went
it's an incredible process. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I mean, it totally changed my whole way of thinking. And so I had a whole newfound respect for Tennessee whiskey. So that kind of went into, once I had the opportunity came to me with being with Uncle Nearest, I was like, oh yeah, same type of thing too, Sailor. I was like, man, I'm all behind this. Is a great freaking story. I'm gung ho, but I'm, as a bartender, I'm like, please, Lord, please.
I know, please let it be. And I even said it had to be.
Like, it's a done deal. Let's go.
It had to be. I said to my husband, this whiskey is going to have to be better than most.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because the way I perceived it coming out of the gate from being inside the industry, I was like, oh Lordy, this had better be some amazing. And so of course it is. And, I always say, I'll put it on your shelf, but the whiskey's going to speak for itself. I'm not worried about it. Once it goes on your shelf, I'm not worried about it at all, because, it's the quality of it. And that's another incredible thing for you guys to not be industry folk. And of course, the choice of Sherry Moore has a lot to do with that, but also for you guys to be astute enough. And I don't think you and Fawn get enough credit for that, to go, well, how do we really know if it is super premium? Because our whiskey is absolutely super premium. How do we know that it's some of the best whiskey out there on the market in American whiskey, period? That is to me, that's a very incredible point of this whole story, is that you guys were able to do that.
That was Fawn and Keith. Well, that was Fawn and Keith. So I will tell you, the Weavers move fast. Okay,
we know.
You got an idea. There you go. And so by the time I sat down with them on that Sunday at their house, they'd already secured our source, and they knew, and they had tasted it, and they'd secured plenty of it. So that is all on. That is
wow,
100% all on them.
That is fast. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
The funniest thing is I remember though. So keep this in mind though. So that was December. So neither Steve nor I had tried our whiskey until June 2017. So we're talking about a month and a half before we launched. We got some samples of it. Wow. Pre diatomaceous earth filtering. So like straight out of the barrel. And we went to NABCA. I don't know if so NABCA is this big control state conference. It was in Marco Island, Florida. Oh, that's a whole nother story because Steve booked the travel.
Marco Island. Weird.
It was a whole thing. Well, that's like it's a 10-minute talk just on like that trip.
That's amazing.
It's your first time on a Greyhound bus?
It was like, I mean, yeah. I mean, I showed up at a motel. It's a whole thing. So.
Marco Island. Oh God.
You were like, hey, Jerkens does not travel like this.
Oh
this
no.
Hotel you're here. There's
higher standards than this.
Boutique brands all day, baby.
I mean, I'm just saying, you need to have interior entrances if you're going to be on a trip. You guys should read the travel policy. It's like written from that experience alone.
At least it was a Motel 8, not a 6.
There you go. when Steve sees this, he'll roll his eyes and be like, I can't believe she's still talking about this. But we were given samples. And so we're at this conference, and it was this first time we went out with business cards, and we're just kind of like dipping our toes and like kind of telling the story. And but we had these samples. And so we sat down in the lobby and we're like, okay, here we go. Like, you know, but it was also like, it wasn't the finished product. It was great, but it wasn't even the finished product yet. But that was the first, I mean, it was a month and a half before the launch. So it really, like, we were all, the Weavers did that, and Sherry, you know, knew what she wanted to do. She knew how she wanted to finish it. She knew how we should put a stamp on it that was going to make it uniquely ours, and it was brilliant.
Was that the first time you met Sherry down there?
So the first time I met Sherry, I'm trying to remember when I met Sherry for the first time. I think it was, so there was this trip we took to Nashville in early 2017. It was myself, it was Steve. So I just hired Steve. We'd met him in person. We'd interviewed him in person, hired him, and then we all met in Nashville. Fawn was there, and then the head of our PR agency and the head of our marketing agency. And I believe it was on that trip that we got to meet Sherry Moore for the first time, which was super fun. But you have to remember, I was kind of in this daze. Like I didn't even get it at that moment still. Do you know what I mean? It was like it was so new. I mean, I remember Fawn took us to the Dan Call Farm on that trip. And you guys have all been to the Dan Call Farm now, right? And you know, like where you go for the hike and it's all paved. So no, that was not paved. That was not cleared out. She had said, bring hiking clothes. Like, okay. And we literally off-roaded. I mean, she took us on like this march through like craziness, and we were all like huffing and puffing, and you know, it's hard. Like she had a vision though. Like we went through all that, and I was like, okay. And then seeing it 2 years later when it was paved and you can walk up to the spring, it was incredible. I mean, we went in the house when they had just bought it. I mean, just seeing raw. And that was a cool moment too, because she had all of her research there. So she was doing a lot of her work in that farmhouse, and so everything was laid out. Just seeing the sheer amount of stuff that was just being shared with her was pretty cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you build this brand, and one of the jokes is always, and the women always get this right away. I'll never forget this. It was one of my first whiskey dinners, and you know, we had just, well, maybe it wasn't one of my first. It was when we had just found out you sent us the information that we're the fastest growing American whiskey brand, blah, blah, blah. And so I mentioned this in a whiskey dinner, and one of the gentlemen in the room was like, wow, how did you do that? And one woman goes, because the company is run by women. And we all just kind of looked at each other like, yep, just so you know, that's how that works. So we're off to this rocket start. We've released we have three expressions. You guys have blown this brand up in 2 years. Now a little more than 2 years. Then this happens. So how everyone is, okay, this meaning the virus, the quarantine, it's something you can't see coming. It's something we kind of, I think most people who are intelligent went, oh, this, you know, this could be a little bit of an issue. I'm worried about my family's health, but I don't think anyone could have anticipated, the shutdown of our country. And you're a new brand. I have an experience in my past. I had opened a brick and mortar business, and 2 days later, the stock market crashed and we were in the recession of 2008. 10,000 pink slips went out in the city I was in, just the city. And my product was not a necessity. And I was just like, oh my God, so it's a scary thing on the one hand. But so we know how we feel about it, and how it's affecting our industry, but I just want to hear about, how do you guys deal with something like that? Like, you realize this is happening, and I'm assuming you guys are calling each other, and you had to, at some point you had to say to us, everybody stay home, we're going to get on a company call, we want you to be safe. Most places are shutting down, bars and restaurants. And we were all, silently freaking out, like, what does this mean? And to be a brand at this stage, and I know what Fawn said the other day, which was an incredible statement about saying, we're not building a brand to be here for 2 years. We're building a brand to be here for 200 years. So we can't worry about, this is just ultimately going to be a blip. But how do you deal with, it's not like you have office workers, you've got all of us around the country, and we're all in different types of markets and places, and how you have directed us, checking in with us regularly. What should we be doing at home? All of our work is out in the market. How you've transitioned us and helped us to pivot and all of that. Just tell us from your perspective what this has been like.
Yeah, I mean, so I live in Los Angeles. Nick and I are in Los Angeles, and so I will say, so it was actually Friday the 13th is when I got the email from my kids' school. We kind of knew it was coming. We kind of started to get real weird with like having wipes with us wherever we went. Like, we were starting to feel it coming. And we got the call that said, school, indefinitely, they actually said at that point till March 30th, but they didn't know that they were closing the schools. And my husband, who works for Snapchat, they had said, this was your last week in the office. You're going to be working from home for the foreseeable future. So we both were like, okay, breathe, but that's all we knew that day. So I remember our mayor went on and made a statement that day saying, Angelenos, I think you should limit the amount of your patronage to bars and restaurants. And I was like, dang it. What are you doing, Garcetti? Like, that's like, are you kidding me, bro? Like, this is not cool. Because I was like, that is a killer. And then I remember we'd started a new we'd started this like contest, like, internal contest. And I set this like big thing out on Saturday night to the whole team, like, we can do it. And then on Sunday, you're hearing like, Pennsylvania's liquor stores are shutting. Like, all of a sudden, things happened so quickly that it was Monday morning. It was like, okay, forget what I sent out on Saturday. And I woke up that morning, and Fawn and Steve and I were on a chain. And to be very honest with you, almost instantaneously, we came up with the ideas that we came up with. Fawn had, the big idea, marketing idea, like about like doing this contest. And I was like, I had been thinking all through Sunday night, like, there's so many things we can do. Like, this is a moment where we can create these committees. Like, we need so much more social media content than, one person can even do. And, I had a lot of people who really wanted to make some changes with our point of sale, like, that thing. So we started just coming up with ways to use this time to the best of our ability, and to use our team to the best of their abilities. And so we've gotten some incredible work done in the last few weeks. Honestly, I mean, what we're doing right now, we didn't have time to do this kind of stuff and to create content for, people to teach them about our brands. And you know what? We were moving so fast that it was really hard to slow down and make the changes we needed to make to some of our printed collateral. It was, we are working on new and ideas for, things that we give away to bars and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. We were moving so quickly that you could kind of do one thing at a time. So it is a blip. It's a painful blip for a lot of people. It's unprecedented. I worked as a junior sales manager for the Hard Rock Cafe Los Angeles on September 11th. And I remember, you know, we did a lot of, it's funny, we did a lot of like international tour groups back then that would literally come in and like get a burger package. And I remember, you know, I'm going deep now, but you know, I remember seeing all those cancellations there. And then I was in the hospitality, I was in the hotel business, and I watched what happened during the recession. But I had the foresight to know that, you know, I think September 11th was the aftermath of that. I don't think anyone ever thought they'd ever feel safe again or feel okay again, or that people would ever go out again. I mean, or ever get on a plane again, like all of these things. And we did. It's hard to see that in the moment, but I think having gone through some of those things, we know we will come out of it on the other side. And I think Fawn says it the best, which is just that we are in the middle of it, guys. We are in the middle of building a company and a legacy. And these few months are painful, and I don't want to take, I'm so grateful for what I have right now, but it's a hard time for many, many people, but we're going to keep trying to build this legacy and do everything we can, from our like tushes on seats in our, you know, living rooms or our bedrooms or wherever it is. And look forward to being back on the streets with everybody.
I think that's one of the things that's been pretty interesting, and once again makes us so different, that you know, we've kind of just said, well, we're going to transition ourselves to doing what we do every day online as much as we can in virtual spaces, and we're going to create virtual spaces and, like you said, get all this work done. I've been seeing so many articles out there and posts about the expectation of production right now, which I honestly, frankly, was like, wow, what a bunch of a-holes, that companies that are expecting people to pump out not just the amount of work they were pumping out previous to this, but more, because they have some weird sense that you have more time on your hands because you're home. And then just with us, you know, the times that we have sometimes tried to do recordings, like with Jay, for example, who has 2 children at home that are school age and who apparently have more work than is sensible for children. Other people that are like, I'm fighting for, you know, one of my district managers for our distributor in Washington calls me yesterday. We're trying to figure out an issue, and she's like, I'm sorry, my husband and I have to split time because they have 2 children that aren't school age. And so she gets the morning, he gets the afternoon, but the kid is still coming in like, mommy. And she's like, just a minute. And she's apologizing to me. I'm like, no, it's, you know, and your kids are on the other side of the room right now. And, you know,
I don't know how they're being so quiet.
Literally right now.
You know,
set of shots staring at you.
Right, exactly. Like, but
yeah,
you know,
me a juice, Mom. You got 10.
I feel like it's important to talk about that because, you know, that obviously you guys have not done that to us. But to, you know, there's this background processing happening in our brain, trying to, I don't even know if you can realize this is a reality right now, but you know, I just think it's terrible that these companies are still expecting people to put in 8 to 10 hour days and you know, adhere to deadlines, and you know, when they're trying to also be teachers and they're not equipped to be teachers. And
Lord have mercy. Like, Kate, how are you doing it with your family? Like, how many you know, how many kids do you have, all that type of stuff? Like, how are you doing this and being a super, other than being a woman, which are super multi-talented, and I'm not, and I suck at that, you know, but I look at my wife doing everything and being on top of everything. How are you doing all that and doing what you're doing with Uncle Nearest too?
Oh gosh. Well, so when I'm not on the road, I work from home. So working from home I can do. But today, so now my new desk is the dining room table because my husband set up near where my other desk is. So we have to be as far apart from each other as we can because I'm really loud. And so is he, and we have conference calls all day. A little bit loud. Little loud. So that I know. I also like to cheerlead. With the kids, I have to say, I will give a shout out. My 6th grader and my 2nd grader, their schools have done a pretty good job with online learning. My middle schooler is basically on these Zoom like calls from 9 to 2 every day. She has 30-minute classes, a break. My 2nd grader, they send out a sheet every day of like your schedule. So he does like a check-in in the morning, and then he's basically following some tasks for the day. Now it's 3 hours. It's not, you know, for forever. Probably the hardest is my 3-year-old. He has no structure, and Alan and I, my husband and I, we're working, we're both working hard right now. And that's not because someone's saying you have to. I feel really productive and like I'm getting a lot of stuff done. I will say the nicest thing about this, and the silver lining for me, is that we have been able to find a way to end the day. And I couldn't tell you, I literally before this month, couldn't tell you the last time that the 5 of us walked outside together and we were on bikes, or walked to a friend's house to say hi from the distance, or consistently for days on end had meals together. My kids both do like 2 sports each, and I'm on the road almost every week. And if I'm not on the road, then my husband is. And so there is so much of a blessing in this as well. It's not easy. I'm not telling you it is. You can see the bags under my eyes. And my husband and I talk about, it's funny how tired we are right now. And I think that's the piece. Just so, and I thought I was tired when I was on the road all the time, but it's different tired.
Yeah. I think it's because we're trying to, like I said, it's background processing that we don't even realize is back there, that we are, you're quelling the fear constantly. You're trying to remain positive. You're concerned about friends and loved ones. You're trying not to read the news too much, but you're trying to stay alert, prepping, I've become one of those doomsday preppers, but you don't want to go that far either. Work honestly for me keeps me sane, 100%. Staying as busy as I can. I need that. I need that structure every day too. But yeah,
that was our goal too, is that if you guys, if our company as a whole can't stay busy, we're not going to be able to be as resilient. We need everyone to stay positive. And I sent this to you. I take Peloton classes. I love spin. It's like saving me right now. And from a class I took the other day, it was all about hope. And the quote she kept saying was, your hope has stamina. And I feel like that is the place we have to stay in right now. And I know it is really, really hard for so many people, but for our team, for this UN team, that's what we're doing. I mean, the cheerleader in me just wants to come in and tell you guys we're going to be okay. We got to stick in this, and everyone's got to keep their energy up and do what we can. And let's create new ideas. Let's figure out what we're going to do the minute we're let loose. And until then, what can we do from here? And it's really, really important, I think, for us to keep our entire team feeling hopeful and engaged.
Absolutely.
I was not surprised at all how our company handled this crisis.
That's awesome.
I know a lot of people that I talked to were nervous about it, and they kept on sending me messages. Are we all to be fired? Are we not getting paid like next week? And one of my first questions, because you had hired me, and
I know back about
so long ago, it feels like
our WeWork meetup.
Yeah.
You're like, is this a real story?
Oh my God. Yeah, everybody else was like, oh, the juice better be good. And I knew the juice was good. And I was like, this story sounds like bullshit. And then I found out it was absolutely true.
Yeah.
So that's what turned me. So yeah, I went the other direction. But, my situation's a little bit different. And I got to say, like, I'm thinking more and more about families that are separated now.
Yeah.
Because I'm separated from, obviously, my ex-wife. And we have 3 kids together. And the kids are with her. And I have not seen them for nearly a month. And so when I was initially getting hired, it's like, look, I've got to keep this schedule. I need these weekends. I've got half a day in the middle of the week that I've got to commit to. And if you can't be flexible here, then I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was never asked to sacrifice family time for job. Never. And so we throw around that hashtag whiskey family. And that means so much more to me than just like, oh, you buy and sell our whiskey, you believe in our story. It's like, no, we treat you like family. Like we generally care about you. And so I think the exhaustion, I feel too, me and my wife are cleaning the house like crazy right now. We've got projects going on. But it's just the anxiety as well. Like I'm thinking about my parents. I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about neighbors that are elderly that can't travel. And now I'm thinking about my kids, obviously, too. Yeah. So the fact that
By the way, Dick, I know that's so hard to be away from your kids, but like what you're doing is like the sacrifice you're making not seeing them is also keeping them healthy. And that's a hard decision. And I've seen a lot of families not be able to do it that way. So I know it's hard. But I know it's
really difficult.
It's going to
I almost forced the issue to change it because there's like, we've been in quarantine for like the 14 days.
So you don't know where they,
No. Yeah. So changed my mind on that one, and that was really hard. But I gotta say, like, I've been nothing but impressed by the family community from the company. And I think it really does come from having somebody like you in a position of power who's leading this company, who's running the Jerkens 5, who's got 3 kids to take care of, and this family, and you have the empathy and the understanding to know that, like, this is priority 1. Mm-hmm. And so to give us the tools to do that and allow us to focus on that is really setting all of us up for a really strong comeback and enabling us to focus on what's really, really important. So I think it's just commendable for all of you.
Thank you. I want to say something really quick because we talk about all these women that run our company, but I got to tell you, one of the things is I do not run the Jerkens 5 over here. I got like a co-pilot, and Fawn does it a lot. Without my husband, this does not happen. I just need everyone to understand that, and I have no pride in saying that. The man,
we love Alan.
He's awesome. And I think it's important. And I think I want to say our company, as many kick-ass women as we got a lot of kick-ass men.
Oh, absolutely.
Really good, great guys. And like that, I think the mix of our company is like what makes it so special as well. So, I just want to make sure, like, I personally have no sense, like, I have to tell you, like, when people are like, oh, how do you do it? I'm like, I married well.
Yeah, same. It's the same for me. I wouldn't be able. Same. I think that's the unique thing about all of us is that if I had a husband that was like, "You're working again. You're still work." This would not happen. This would not have happened. I wouldn't be sitting here right now,
producing our show, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm done with the recording, and I yell upstairs because I'm, we joke this is my new, and he's fixing my camera for me and bringing me sandwiches on the side, and you can't see, all of that on the background, and he's making sure our parents are not leaving the house because they're boomers, and that's that whole boomer thing. But yeah, I mean, and he drives me when I travel. He's my driver, and he also makes sure I've eaten food and had a glass of water. that at whatever time at night, okay, stop working, shut phone off, you're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's important to do that.
It's hard to find that balance, but I mean, it definitely is crucial for having someone by your side to help. Because I mean, there's no way that I can run around and do all the stuff that I do, that we do, and not have somebody here to take care, especially with 2 little kids, a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old.
No way.
Which just, I mean, it's like you said, like we feel like we're working even more than we have before. Like, it's a different type of tired. And I mean, I just gotta commend my wife for hanging in there. I mean, heck, just before we got on here, I was down in the living room, and I was like, hey, I got to move up here to the dining room to be on this podcast. And she's like, I'm in the midst of doing the babies, we're doing the first graders homework. And I was like, I got to come up here. She's like, okay. So she just trying to move, but I mean, I'm looking at her to the side right now because she's preparing dinner, and I'm like, okay, I got 10 more minutes, baby. Yeah. 10 more minutes. And I'm like, I love you. By the way, can I get some more water? I love you.
Very thirsty right now, though.
Oh, so yeah.
I will say, I got to point something out real quick. I do got to point something out because I noticed it when we interviewed Sherry. I noticed it when we interviewed Victoria as well. And I've heard Fawn say this a number of times. And now I've heard you say it, is that when you're in the middle of building this thing, when you were like, oh, I'm going to try and do all 50 states in 2 years, nobody told you couldn't do it.
Yes.
And nobody told you that's not how it's done. Mm-hmm. Nobody told you that's not possible. Like, you never asked people, like, is this a realistic goal? And Sherry said the same thing when she was getting into the distillery operation. Nobody told her that it's weird that you're a woman and you're coming into this position. Right. And same thing with Victoria. And I've heard the same thing from Fawn. So it's a really interesting through line that simply you've set goals and you've ignored. I have a hard time believing nobody's ever said that's not normal. I think you've just ignored the naysayers and the people who have tried to hold you back and rein you in. And I think that's a huge part of why we're so successful.
I heard it, and then it went that way, and I was like, but...
Sounds like bad advice.
You're like, Cali girl, anyway, we'll be fine.
You're like, are you guys kidding me?
There it is.
Made my real Valley girl come out, Jay.
I love it.
There you go. Let it go, girl.
Well, as we always say at the end of this show, thank you, Kate, for not just being with us today, but thank you for doing what you do. And, you know, your leadership is what makes this possible, and we appreciate that. And I'm very thankful that we get to do this every Monday and get to connect with each other. And I just think it's really important. I want people to know the beauty behind the brand and all of the stellar people that make up this big whiskey family. So thank you everyone for watching. Guys. Thanks for coming and tuning in with us. And we have to remember to drink honorably, otherwise Haley will kill us. That's one of our hashtags, #drink honorably.
Is that what we're doing, Jay, right here on the shoulder?
Yes, yes.
And you can find us
little boo.
every Monday, and follow us on Uncle Nearest on Facebook and Instagram. And we have some really exciting, if you haven't already noticed, social content every day of the week for you. So you can keep connected to us. Good job, Jay. It's brilliant right there.
Great patch, great patch.
So thank you, everybody, and stay well and stay home.
Amen.